So last night, I don't know what that was. What was that? What was that? Was it supposed to be a town hall, the NBC Savannah Guthrie event? I mean, that was an inquisition. Now, contrast that last night with the Biden town hall on ABC, which was really the equivalent of Romper Room. What an embarrassing joke. They weren't even softball questions. They were like lay me down on a down feather pillow there. I mean, give me a break. What was the guy going to get? A massage afterwards? Someone going to give him a cigarette and a smoking jacket? The Biden was a total, what a disaster. The guy went on 5 10-minute answers from Stephanopoulos. No one interrupted him ever. It's embarrassing. Again, it shows you again why the media, the same people now, this is why I did the show in this order, injecting back into the national discourse the Russia nonsense, right as the heat goes on Biden, because that's what they do. They're disinformation specialists in the media. This is what they do here. So I don't want to go crazy with this because you're going to hear a lot of this today on the news. But here's a couple of cuts. Here's Biden last night, again, given a softball question on policing. I have to rate this one of the dumbest answers in the history of presidential politics. Joe Biden asked about police use of force. Just listen to this. This is like, if there were imbecile levels and like DEFCON levels, and DEFCON 1's the worst. People get that backwards. DEFCON 1's the worst. This is like imbecile level 1 right here. Check this out.
We can do this. You can ban chokeholds. But beyond that, you have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's ways you have to do more background checks in terms of whether or not the person coming in passes certain psychological tests.
I knew that was going to get you. You
watched it as it happened? You knew that was coming over as a cut this morning?
I knew. It was going to get you.
Folks, no, there's a couple things. Obviously, you're all cringing at the horror that a presidential candidate actually said that. I understand that. But I'm trying to be serious about it because you can laugh and we should, because Biden is laughable. Yeah. He's a clown. And he's a con man, and he's a corruptocrat, and he's also a national security risk right now. But he's also an imbecile a lot. But really, once in a while he gives a semi-intelligible answer. This was not it. So he's talking about de-escalation, and then he follows de-escalation. De-escalating, folks, for the liberals listening, that means the opposite of escalating. That means, in other words, bringing down the temperature on an interaction if you're a police officer with someone in the public you're interacting with, de-escalating, taking it down, right? So it's not funny. It's so stupid. But he mentions de-escalation and he follows up with, well, shoot him in the leg. So I'm trying to envision a scenario here. You're, let's say you're issuing a parking ticket. I used to work in the 7-5 precinct as a police officer in East New York. Guy comes running out. He's, really upset. Which is understandable. That's why I never wrote parking tickets. I think I wrote like 5 of them my entire time there. And it was only for egregious stuff. I'm serious. I hated it. I didn't even care. They gave you the informal quote. I'm like, I ain't doing that. Sorry. Guy comes running out, screaming, I wasn't double parked. I was everything. And he looks like he's going to kick your caboose in, right? Kick the wazoo. We still don't know where the wazoo is, but I don't want to get kicked there. So he comes running out, and you want to de-escalate it. So you're like, here are your options, Joe. Option A for the sane people. Sir, I hear you. I appreciate what you're saying. Very sorry, but you were double parked. There's a way to fight the ticket. Here's how you do it. The instructions are on the back. Now, Joe, you weren't a police officer, but Joe's a pretty smart guy. That'd be pretty good de-escalation, right? Taking the temperature down. You think?
That would be, yeah.
Could work. He may be really upset. Maybe it doesn't work, but it's worth a shot. Sir, I'm really sorry. It's not personal. This is how, we have to enforce the law. People complain. Cars couldn't get around you. Joe Biden's where you whip out your Glock or whatever, and you're like, sir, show me a leg. Give me a leg immediately, sir. Right or left? Right or left? He's a lefty. Shoot him in 11. Put your leg out. There you go. Hit him in the vastus medialis. Right there. Are you de-escalated now, sir? You may say, oh, come on. You're taking this to, an unnatural level. It's being a bit hyper. But is it really? He's talking about de-escalation, and the next thought that comes to his mind is we should shoot people in the leg? Sir, is that an open beverage in public? Give me a leg, sir. Give me right or left. If you're right, give me that left leg. Well, maybe in the calf. Give me the calf. Hold on. What is he talking about? De-escalate people by shooting them in the leg? Let's assume for a minute he had a coherent thought. He didn't. But let's assume he did. And what he meant to say is in deadly use of force scenarios, there's no de-escalating a deadly use of force scenario. Do you understand what I'm saying? When the decision is made to use deadly force, there's no de-escalating. There is stopping what's happening. In other words, does this make sense? If I'm beating this to death, please forgive me. But I want you to understand that this guy's running to be the president of the United States. He's going to supervise the Department of Justice, and he can't even logically think through basic things like use of force scenarios. When a firearm or a knife at close range is pulled on you, and you perceive that the result of an attack will be serious physical injury or death to you or someone else, and you've decided to employ deadly force, a firearm, you're not de-escalating. Your effort there is to stop what's happening. There is a difference. The terminology matters. Because if you don't stop it, you will be dead or seriously physically injured. Biden doesn't understand the difference. He does understand it, folks, by the way, even though he's not that bright. He's using these terms because these are leftist buzz terms that he knows caters to the radical left. Do you understand why he did that? We have to de-escalate, and therefore we think about shooting him in the leg. That's not what deadly use of force is about. Firearms by police are employed on general use of force guidelines only to stop an incident that could result in death or serious physical injury to others. It's not about de-escalation at that point. It's about stopping it before someone dies. Now, why do we not shoot people in the leg intentionally? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you're engaged in a deadly use of force incident with your firearm as a police officer, you shoot to stop. Nobody is trained to shoot to kill outside of limited scenarios. A suicide bomber, where you may say a suicide bomber in a ballistic vest, you may have to aim for the head. There are very limited scenarios where you'd be trained to shoot to kill. Folks, listen, I know I taught this stuff. You are trained to stop. You're not trained to kill the subject. And the most tactically efficient, it's not nice, it's not cute, I'm not trying to undersell any of this. The most tactically efficient way to do that is to fire your weapon, God forbid you had to, into an area you're likely to hit, which is what? The center mass of the body, which is the biggest and is the most stable. The reason you don't we don't train people to shoot people in the legs is because it's really hard to do, which would make it really hard to stop someone engaging in an incident that could result in your death or the death of another. Does that make sense? Of course it does if you're sane, but not to Joe Biden, who doesn't have any clue what he's talking about. We don't shoot or train to shoot people in the legs because it's not going to stop what that person's doing to warrant a deadly force response from the police officer. That's why, Joe, I'm telling you, if Armacost last night knew I was going to give that clip to him, believe me, every police officer in America, every police officer, law enforcement agent, corrections officer, trained pilot with some pilots have firearms, trained security guard who's been trained with a firearm, watched that clip last night and went, oh my God. They gave the Ryan Reynolds Giphy on Twitter where he's like, oh, and you use Giphy on Twitter. You know exactly what I'm talking about. What? Of course, Biden always advertising his ignorance. Let's go to just quickly here. Video number 2, the lowlights of Biden's softball session. George Stephanopoulos knew he had to ask this question. No questions, by the way, about the Biden crime family at all. None. Why would we ask that? I mean, the guy could be a national security risk to the United States of America, whose family could have been bribed off by foreign governments who are nuclear powers. Let's not ask him about that. But George Stephanopoulos knew He had to ask him a question about packing the Supreme Court. And Biden still won't give a realistic answer. Check this out.
Looks like they're going to have a vote around Halloween. So if they vote on it before the election, you are open to expanding the court?
I'm open to considering what happens from that point on.
Biden still won't give you an answer about destroying an entire branch of government by adding seats to the Supreme Court, which would be promptly followed up by the Republicans, then followed up again by the Democrats. You'd have 1,167 members of the Supreme Court, which would render the entire branch of government feckless and useless. What'll be next, by the way, after they pack the Supreme Court? They'll pack the appeals courts. Ladies and gentlemen, it'll be a total disaster. Biden won't answer the question. You'll get my answer after I decide what happens with Amy Coney Barrett, or I see what does that have to do with anything?
You just heard Dan Bongino.